We will call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. I am Robert Eisner, the Vice Chair, noting that our Chairman, Ned Stanchion, is excused for tonight's meeting, so I'll be running the meeting. Um, Bruce, if you can do the roll call, please.
All right. Ned Stachin, Richard Berlandi,
Here.
David Fox,
Here.
Robert Eisner,
Here.
Neil Kelsey, Mark Simpson,
Here.
Andre Simons,
Present.
Jay Tulin,
I'm here.
and George Santos. Just for the record, as Commissioner Eisner stated, Neil Stachin did contact us and say he would not be in attendance.
Great.
So
Thank you,
there's-
Bruce.
Am I coming out of alternate and actually having a vote tonight because of that? Or no?
Bruce, that'd be a yes, correct?
Yes, yep, sorry.
Okay.
I thought I'd jump on that one, yes.
Just
So
checking.
we
I don't
will-
want to misvote like I did a couple of meetings ago, so I just want to be clear. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Jason. Yes. So we will seek Jay for Ned Stanchion. All right. I'll hear the first order of business. Item number one, Richard Jones, lot 8556, New Britain Avenue.
Okay, the applicant's engineer is here, David Whitney. Are you there, Dave?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes. All
Okay.
right. Let me get you over to your site plan.
Would
All
you
right,
like
all
me
yours.
just to jump into it? Okay.
Yeah, just jump in.
All right. Well, thank you. My name's Dave Whitney. I'm a professional engineer with an office in Avon, representing Richard Jones from Jones Construction LLC, who owns this property on New Britain Avenue at 8556 New Britain Avenue. This site is next door to the town highway garage. And abuts the rails to the trails in the rear portion of the property. Last year, okay, Bruce is showing us where it is.
There's the highway right there, and there's the vacant lot, and there's the bus, M&J bus is right in this area here, so.
Okay, so it's between the bus garage and the town garage with the rails to trails in the rear of the property. Last year, your commission approved a site plan for this property, including a considerable amount of activities within the 150-foot upland review area. I was not involved in the project at the time. This is the site plan here that you're seeing from that application. There are no wetlands on the site, or maybe just a small portion of Hyde Brook. The only wetlands are the watercourse itself, which comes underneath the old train track, so the rails to trails, and then it flows down to New Britain Avenue on the town's property for the most part, and then goes underneath New Britain Avenue. There's no adjacent wetland soils like sometimes you have. The wetlands were delineated by Eric Davison from Davison Environmental, and there's a report on file. So, Bruce, if you could just go to the site plan that I submitted with the application. Thank you. So the Hyde Brook is shown in blue on the left-hand side of the map, and the 150-foot upland review area is shown in yellow. And if you see in the rear of the site, there's two shaded areas. Right there where Bruce has the cursor, the cross-hatched red area is the new area of impervious surface from the approved site plan. And then the brown shaded area there is the new area of site disturbance. If we can go to Bruce, if we can go to the plan I sent today, the presentation plan. Okay. I've superimposed on the original approved plan what we're requesting in this application. And you can see Hyde Brook is in blue there at the top of the screen. The site is a slightly different orientation on this original plan, but it's the same scale. You can see the green line is the limit of the 150-foot upland review area. That hasn't changed. The yellow shaded area are all the activities that were approved by your commission last year. It consists of an entrance driveway, a retention basin, portions of some buildings. All those activities were approved. What we're requesting now is relatively minor, I think. We've slid the building in the back over to the northeast, where it's now outlined in red. That's the new location of the building as per the site plan I submitted with this application. And what we're proposing is to put an area of pavement at the northwest end of that building, shown here cross-hatched in red, which will provide some parking and will provide some bays in the building at the northwest end of the building to make it a little bit more functional. So we're adding some impervious surface, and again, that is 3,820 square feet. And then anytime you do construction, there's some site disturbance outside the actual pavement or the buildings, and I typically use 20 feet as a limited disturbance, and that's, Bruce has the cursor on that right now. That's in brown, and that additional site disturbance is about 1,600 square feet. A couple of things I'd like to point out. The area of additional site disturbance that was not on the original plan, there are no mature trees in that area. It's all scrub growth. And number two, that area of additional site disturbance will be vegetated after construction. There will be plantings. We're working on the planting plan right now. There will be plantings in that brown shaded area and also in the area of that old shed that will be removed. So we'll be proposing some plantings between the new edge of pavement and Hyde Brook as part of the plan. The second thing I wanted to point out was the cross-hatched area of new impervious surface. The stormwater runoff will flow to a catch basin in the driveway and will bring the stormwater back into the center of the site. Bruce, if we could go back to my plan that I submitted with the application. Okay. If you could show the catch basin in the driveway there, right there, where he has the cursor, that's the catch basin that will pick up the stormwater runoff from the new impervious parking lot and bring it back to our stormwater infiltration and treatment system, which will be located underground in the middle of the site. And then from the stormwater system, the discharge for the larger storms will be to the retention basin that was previously approved. So what I'm trying to say is the stormwater runoff from the new impervious surface, the new parking area, will not discharge directly to the infiltration basin and will not just discharge directly to Hyde Brook. So, so this is a relatively minor change in the site. You know, we have made some changes to the layout, to the buildings, to the storm drainage, to the parking lot from the original approved plan. But again, most of those changes are outside of the 150-foot regulated area. Within the regulated area, we have not changed the entrance driveway. We've not changed the piping. We've not changed the retention basin. All of that remains exactly as it was on the plan that was approved. So I guess I think basically that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I guess the point of tonight's goal is to have this application hopefully accepted by the commission and determine if you want to have a site walk. because I understand there's some new commissioners that weren't on the commission at the time this plan was approved, and determine if this is significant enough to warrant a public hearing. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
David, thank you for the presentation. And from my perspective, I don't see the changes as being overly extensive. Clearly, you're adding some additional activity in the regulated area. One of the concerns that the commission had when this went through the original approval was the visibility of the site from the rails to trail path because it's so heavily used. So it was good to hear that there's no additional mature trees that are being lost. You said it was all sort of scrub brush. But I think that overall planting plan that we did with the original approval will be critical. So I'll hear what the other commissioners have to say, but I don't think it's going to, from my perspective, warrant an additional night of a hearing because I don't think the changes pose a significant impact to the wetlands. So those are my opening comments. I'll go around to the commissioners. Commissioner Berlandi, any questions or comments?
I would agree with what you just said. I don't think a site walk is needed, and I don't have any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox? Dave, are you on mute?
Sorry about that.
There you go.
I'll agree with you on the non-significance and no site walk. I'm curious about the stormwater infiltration system. I'm guessing it has to be a little bit bigger to accommodate the new impervious surface, particularly since I guess you've got to do more of the water quality volume because you're over the 50% mark.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So you'll provide all those calculations to staff.
I'm working on that right now.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Commissioner Simons?
Dave actually grabbed my question. So I do not have any questions. I know the area generally, so I don't think a site walk is needed or warranted, even if I am a new commissioner. And I don't see this as too significant of a change, especially because there's no wetlands in the area where they're moving the new building.
Thanks, Andre. Commissioner Simpson?
I do have a question. I'm looking at this new parking area. There's one part of it looks like 4 parking spaces, and the one closest to the brook is maybe 3 parking spaces. At that point, how close is it to the brook?
The 54 feet from the closest point of pavement to Hyde Brook is 54 feet. And that includes, some of the land on the town's properties, but it's 54 feet.
Is there going to be curbing around this parking lot
Yes.
to prevent?
Yes. All the water, if you can see the 215 contour line goes through the parking lot, and that's going to direct all the water out towards that new catch basin, right where Bruce has the cursor. And that's going to bring it to the stormwater system. So that there will be curbing and the parking lot will be graded away from the wetlands.
So these bays that are going to be set up and allow delivery of certain things, what are we talking about being delivered?
Well, these are warehouse use and contractor storage and contractor bays. So, say a landscaper might be in there, other types of contractors who want to store equipment, or have their employees meet there. So, one of the requirements for planning and zoning is that the applicant submit a list of proposed tenants, like the type of tenants that will be using the buildings. So it's not intended to be like daily deliveries of materials. It's not really going to be a place where you stockpile storage materials. It'll more be for contractors to have bays for their equipment.
Yeah, mainly those, I mean, I know what previous commissioners have said, but I'm looking at those 3 parking spots as, I don't know. We've approved residential property probably within 25 feet of wetlands. This is double that distance, but at the same time, it's a commercial application, which is different than a residential application, what usage and what type of contamination or whatever could happen. So I'm a little, personally, the commission can decide and vote which way they want to go, but I'm a little, I'm just a little concerned about those spots nudging that ever closer to that brook. That's pretty much, I'll leave it as that, and we don't need a site visit. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Commissioner Toulon?
Yeah, I actually was thinking, being like Mr. Whitney referred, I am a newer member. I wasn't on the commission when this was first approved. So my initial thought was it wouldn't be a bad idea for me to see it, just because it looks like there's some minor changes to the original application, but I'll defer to the others and go along with it. I don't think it's necessary. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I did, Bruce, I didn't miss any commissioners, right? I got everyone?
No, Neil slipped into the bunker. He found us. He found us, so he walked up.
I'm live and in person now. So
All right, then.
I don't have any questions or comments on this one at this point.
Great, thanks. And I do just want to make a comment that Commissioner Simpson touched on. I actually think that there's a greater problem with residential properties once they're developed versus commercial properties, because here, and I appreciate the fact that Mr. Jones is attending the meeting, we'll have an actual owner and property manager. Right? I think more of the problems we see post-development is with residential property owners encroaching on the wetlands and not abiding by the conservation easements. So while we are contemplating quite a bit of additional paving closer to the wetlands, I think that once the development is done, our track record shows that we have better luck with the commercial owners versus residential owners post development. But that's my perspective. So I think we've heard all the comments. It doesn't sound like we need to schedule a hearing or a site walk. So with that said, I would entertain a motion to accept the application.
So moved by Dave.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. This is Jay.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
So
Great,
Thank you very much.
Hey, Robert, I just want to be clear. This is a new application, so the fact that I wasn't on the commission during the initial application doesn't stop me from seconding this, correct?
that is correct.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, but yes, you're correct, Jay. This is a new application, so
Yep.
I think we're good with.
Yeah, this is correct. This is a brand new
That-
application. So
That's what I thought. I just wanted to be sure. Thanks.
So may I ask, when is the next meeting? And this will be an agenda item for discussion or vote at that meeting?
November
yeah,
6th.
November 6th. Let me do my little cheat sheet.
November 2nd?
Yeah, no,
6th.
November 6th.
Get some dates for
2 weeks out. And Dave, I think we'd probably, finish the discussion, and unless there's any major concerns that come up, I think we'd, good chance that we'd be voted on next time as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
You're
Dave.
welcome. Okay, that'll bring us down to new business item 2, City of Hartford, 95 Batterson Park Road.
Give me a second. Those are big files, so I couldn't have everything open at once. So let me get those uploaded now. Report. Presentation. Here we go.
Good
We do
evening,
have- Go ahead.
Chair Eisner. This is Paul Drummy from the city of Hartford. I was hoping I could give a little bit of background before I hand it over to the project team, if that's
Yes,
allowable.
please do.
Thank you,
Yes, please.
Chairman. Appreciate it. Thank you, commissioners, for your time tonight. High level, back in July of 24, legislation passed law that allows passports for parks to fund the operational cost of this park. That allowed this rehabilitation effort to move forward. If you remember, you may remember rather, that a few years back, it paused because we couldn't get to a point of how we were going to fund operations. But now that the Speaker of the House, Matt Ritter, and his team and the legislation has the revenue coming in to support operations, we started moving forward. So that said, in August, I engaged Farmington's town manager to ask for a meeting to discuss next steps. And Ms. Blonsky and her leadership team met with myself, the owner's project manager, CSG out of East Hartford. Construction Solutions Group is the city of Hartford's owner's project manager on this project. We have BSC Group, which is the designer who will be speaking momentarily. And we also, who are going to operate the park, is Riverfront Recapture. So I explained this to Ms. Blonsky and her leadership team, getting her up to speed of where we were at that point. And ever since then, it's really, the city staff has been integral part of supporting the project team and getting us to this point in such a short period of time. So, Mr. Sear and Ms. Rutherford have been extremely willing to offer any support along the way to get us prepared for this meeting tonight. So I hope that what BSC is about to present is just that. So with that said, Robert Newton and Jesse Harris from BSC, if you may.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Paul. Go to the next slide, Bruce.
All right.
This is a pretty large and complex project, so this will probably take a little bit more time. And of course, this is the first time that we've been in front of the commission, so we wanted to make sure that we present all the applicable information to you, so you'd be well informed in your decision making moving forward. So, tonight's agenda, we're obviously going to go through the existing site, kind of the way it is today. We'll go through the proposed improvements, the stormwater management approach, and the landscaping as part of that project. Next slide. So a little bit of site context. Battersea Park is situated on the eastern side of Farmington and adjacent to the city of New Britain. It comprises about 266 acres of land. 155 of that is Battersea Park Pond, which is a dam controlled former water reservoir for the city of Hartford. Historically, it's been a park. It was transferred from the Metropolitan District Commission to the city of Hartford back in 1928, when it again was no longer identified as a drinking water reservoir. And since then, the city has managed it with the park use. And then around in 2015 or so, the city of Hartford permanently closed the park after years of disrepair and just budget constraints and maintenance. And so here we are today talking about bringing this park back to life, bringing it back to its former glory of years past. Last year, as part of a more in-depth master planning effort that BSC Group was a part of with the city of Hartford, prior to what Paul was mentioning with the kind of the change in direction of ownership or management, a series of on-site buildings and picnic tables, pavilions were demolished and removed from the property. I believe that project came before this commission to get approval for that work as well. Next slide, Bruce. So just, some pictures, obviously the existing site drive entering the park, is really just closed to vehicles. Pedestrians still walk in, many pedestrians, neighborhood. A lot of people park at the gate, to the driveway and walk in. A lot of it's used for walking dogs. Also bird watching is a big activity out here with bald eagle sightings and migratory birds and waterfowl and the like. The park, when we've been visiting, has been just kind of overgrown. The city did go out and mow some of that this year, to just try and keep up with the maintenance ahead of knowing that we're hoping to get improvements constructed in the next few months and over the winter and into spring of 2025. So they kind of got a jump start on just mowing some of the brush and overgrowth. Next slide. And then just kind of an aerial view of what it looks like today. This is the historical beach location where the old buildings were. There's a kind of a small loop drive with a few parking spaces. You can see the meandering paved trail that kind of walks through the meadow and along the water's edge. And then there's a couple remnants of paved surfaces, which were either picnic pavilions. I know one further to the south was a basketball court. So again, just kind of the way the site looks today. Next slide. And then this is just kind of the opposite direction looking south. You can see those concrete paths, the meandering paved walkway through the meadow, and then way down to the south there is the old paved basketball court. Next slide. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ethan Sneesby, our soil scientist, to just talk about the resources on the site.
Yeah, Ethan Sneesby, PSC Group. So I'll give you a brief overview of the wetland resources that are sort of directly in the area of the development, and then I'll sort of briefly discuss the stuff that's a little bit further into the site to the left there. The larger wetland that's right along the border has areas that are sort of state jurisdictional as well as federally jurisdictional. So you can see those are broken out with the state jurisdictionality sort of including the hydric soils, which go a little bit further up, but the vegetation drops out. So they're not Army Corps of Engineer jurisdictional wetlands in that area. Those extend along the ordinary high water line there and then are on the bank also to the right of where the building was demolished, the larger sort of bathroom house that was there. That is a lacustrine fringe wetland. It essentially receives water flowing on from above and is possibly getting groundwater discharge, but then is largely controlled by the water level of the pond itself. It's mostly emergent vegetation with interspersed trees, including like pin oaks and things like that. Large, but it's not a continuously forested area, so it's an emergent wetland. And then the larger wetland to the northeast of that, wetland 2, that is a forested riverine floodplain wetland. So that entire area is forested. That receives water from the stream that flows through there, and it floods out into it. That one is dominated a lot by red maple, as well as there are sort of mixed hardwoods in that area. And then the wetland, you might not be able to see, but wetland 3 is directly next to where the building was. That one, yeah, it's quite small, but that was sort of formed, I believe, from surface water. There's a culvert that took water from the paved areas and it sort of discharged it right there. So that small wetland formed and is served mainly as a stormwater accumulation area and developed hydric soils and hydric vegetation. But it's not wooded, it's mostly emergent vegetation in that area. And then we can't see them. Is the next slide the second map page?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to that. And I'll just give a sort of a bit of discussion on that. Yeah, so here there's a fairly large wetland complex out in the woods here, with some of these being either groundwater discharge, or in the case of wetland 11, there's a possible vernal pool in that area. That's all the way up to the left, but most of these receive stormwater flow and overland flow and are forested, quite similar to the wetland 2, with the composition there, a lot of red maple, as well as there are oaks. There are also beech in this area, which are not typically hydrophytic, but they seem to be doing pretty well out here. These areas are so a little bit more detail on wetland 4 is one of the ones that's closest to and incorporates quite a large area. The area closest to the development has a lot more scrub shrub cover, and has sort of a higher percentage of invasive species in that area. You get a fair amount of barberry and oriental bittersweet, and those sorts of species. But these are all, so that's essentially what we have going on here. Wetland 6, 5, those two are both receiving stormwater flow as well as a bit of groundwater discharge in those areas. There are the 3 perennial streams on the site. Those are that large one that abuts, wetland 6. There's the one that's within wetland 2, and then there's the one that abuts to the left, wetland 8, which is sort of southwest of here. That's the other one. And then the rest of the streams that are mapped on the site are all intermittent streams that tend to flow with rainfall. I believe I have a lot of photos coming up in this slide that'll help sort of give a little bit of idea of what we're looking at in terms of what the wetlands look like. I think we can go to the next slide. And so this is the largest of the perennial streams. This is the one that abuts wetland 8 and comes down into the park. You can see it's got fairly incised and eroded banks. It lacks wetlands on the edges all the way until it reaches wetland 8. And seems to be fairly flashy in terms of its flow regime. Go to the next slide. Here is an example of the intermittent streams that are on site. You can see they're also fairly eroded, with sort of incised banks, not great vegetative communities on the edges there. And so that sort of just gives you an example of what they look like. And you can go to the next slide. Yep, this is another example of one of the intermittent streams. This is within the area closer to wetland 12 and 8 and 11 and 10. So this is on the western portion near the boat ramp. You can see the streams are essentially just rocky areas where stormwater will flow between it's sort of quite diffuse flow, and it seems fairly flashy at times. We go to the next slide. So this is wetland 3. This is prior to the demolition of the building. I was out there. You can see it's, it lacks woody vegetation. It's mostly emergent, and it was a maintained lawn, so there's like a fescue species that was growing there. So that's just to give you an example of what we're looking at in terms of that. It is probably one of the lower quality wetlands on the site. It doesn't serve a huge habitat for as many species. It's possible that maybe amphibians land in it now and then, but it's discontinuous from all the rest of the wetlands on site, and is mainly processing stormwater, so it's serving those sorts of functions and values. We go to the next slide. Appreciate it. So this is where those basketball courts are. Those are now taken out, the baskets at least, but this is wetland 1 and 1A. So this is the area where the hydric soils sort of extend further upslope, and to the right, you can see that's where the sort of more functional scrub shrub and wetland area is. You can sort of see ponding on that path right there. This area is inundated for a fair amount of the year. Go to the next slide. I think there's another photo of this one. So this is just the opposite angle looking. You can see this is sort of later in the year, but it's well ponded. You can see, juncus species in there. And so this is within the wetland 1, the, Army Corps jurisdictional area, versus the sort of state where it's just hydric soils. Go to the next slide. So this is from within wetland 4. So this is the area that's a little bit overgrown, more scrub shrub, a fair amount of cover, fair amount of multiflora rose. There is greenbrier here, as well as the barberry, and there's a fair amount of vine species, so fox grape, oriental bittersweet, those sorts of things on the trees in this area. But just want to give an idea of how thick it is in that area. Next slide. Yeah, so this is another one of one wetland one. You can see the building in the background that has not been removed, but just to give you a second view of this area, the photos were not great, so I wanted to have a third in there for you. Next slide. Yep, thank you. Yeah, so this is a photo of the possible vernal pool area. So during the times that we were doing delineations, it wasn't possible to establish whether or not this could be a like definitely a vernal pool, so weren't able to complete species counts on amphibians in the area. It was just dry at both times. But just to give you an idea of what is present out there, this is likely one of the nicer wetlands on the site. It's fairly undisturbed. There is evidence of this area right around here being used by some homeless. I know I found a few tent encampments while I was out there the first time. They've been demolished the second time I was out there though. So I don't know if but it tends to get used in that way in this area. Next slide. Yeah, so this is within the wetland, like 11, 8, 10, 11, well, rather 8, 9, 10 area, and 12 actually. So fairly thick. There's American hornbeam in this, but it does have enough hydrophytic vegetation to qualify as wetland, but it is fairly borderline in terms of whether it would be upland or wetland for vegetation. But just to give you an idea of the density of the vegetation in those areas. Yep, go to the next slide. Appreciate it. Oh, I guess I had a duplicate in there. Apologize. So we're back to the same incised stream, one of the larger perennials on the site. So we can move forward past that. And then I'd be happy to entertain questions. I know there's a lot of wetlands on site, and there are some that are closer to the project, and some that are further away. I feel like it might be worth it if you have specific questions about them that I could address, because there's a fair amount of detail in the report and whatnot. So I guess I'd put that, unless we want to wait till the end, but I'd be happy to answer questions on those.
Sure. Evan, thanks. And Rob and Paul, thanks for the overviews. Evan, I'm sorry, Ethan.
No problem.
Yeah. For the vernal pool, I think this commission has talked a lot about vernal pools in the past, and we give heavy consideration. So if you weren't able to do the assessment of aquatic life and amphibian life, then I think for the purposes of permitting, you should assume it is a vernal pool. And then if you look at, there is direct impact proposed with this application, I think, my opinion would be for the commission to look for, offsetting mitigation. And I would give a lot of consideration to, if that is a vernal pool, then recognizing the greater, we have 150-foot upland review area, but obviously the recommendation with the industry is to have a much greater protection area for a vernal pool. So I think as we sort of layer through
Yeah,
the application process,
I can touch on
that
that.
would be important.
In terms of the impact areas, the vernal pool is actually the furthest wetland from any of the impacts. I believe that we have a path going through the woods, which would be outside of that upland review area for it as well. So in terms of all the wetlands on site, I think it has the least chance of having any impact to it. Yeah, that's it right there. Thank you for mousing over it. Excuse me. Yeah, but I do agree that assuming that it's a functional high-value vernal pool is worthwhile. I fully agree with you there. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And I'll go around and ask the commissioners if there's other questions or comments. Commissioner Verlandy?
I don't have any questions at this point, but be interested to see further on. That's all I have.
Great, thanks. Commissioner Fox?
Yeah, there was a lot of information presented to us, not only tonight, but got this around noontime today. The application says, I think it was 4,800 square feet of direct wetland impact, but it doesn't really identify which wetlands and which activities are doing that. That's going to have to be provided, I would imagine.
Yep.
And
Yep.
The functions and values were briefly discussed, but there was no discussion of impacts to function or values from those direct impacts. So that's got to be included as well.
In terms of the impacts, I believe the only wetland that would be definitely impacted, and Jesse, feel free to step in if I get this wrong, but is the wetland 3 that's directly within the area of the development. And to compensate for that, we're looking at removing sort of the asphalt areas that were within wetland 1, so the paved basketball courts, and restoring those areas so that they can, become functional wetland. So in terms of the actual square footage, I'll defer to Jesse and Rob on those. But the main impacts will be to wetland 3, and then within wetland 1, there will be some boardwalks added, I believe. And they maybe can discuss this a little bit more. I know we've got more coming in this in the presentation. But there would be, I think there are viewing platforms which are going to be present within wetland 1. And a kayak launch, I believe, is going to be there. So there are those sort of will be discussed a little bit further into the presentation.
Oh, okay. I'll just wait for the rest of the presentation.
Sorry about
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you. Yep. I guess I'm sort of, if you have specific questions too, just like the wetlands, maybe, but the impacts, I guess, are specific to the wetlands. So that is a good question. Sorry.
Commissioner Kelsey?
Yeah, you touched on the asphalt. When the buildings and everything were torn down, was there any asphalt left, or has that all been taken out, or has that all been left undisturbed at this point?
None of the asphalt for any of the parking or existing drive or those 3 kind of rectangular spaces, they're still there. They have not been removed.
Okay. And I'm sorry, are those actually in the wetlands area? So when you say removing that will restore the functionality of that wetlands, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So they are within the wetland. They have a raised, they're raised. I believe they probably have a sort of a base of either gravel or something like that underneath the asphalt. I think the intent would be to remove the asphalt and bring it to the wetland grade so that it could gain wetland hydrology and begin functioning as a wetland. You can see on that mapping within wetland 1A, there are a couple squares that are that seem a little bit odd. Those are the courts. Yeah, those right there. Those are the basketball courts or picnic area that would be restored.
Yeah, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on those in the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Does any of the asphalt path go through the wetlands, and what are your plans for that?
Yes, so the asphalt
it does, yes. Yeah, it does, and I'll go into that in a little bit more. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further for me at this point.
Thanks. Commissioner Simons?
I have a few questions, but I think I'll hold them off until the end of the presentation. I definitely do believe, because I have walked that path actually with my wife, that is a vernal pool, but I haven't done a species count. So I think it would be better to defer to that as an actual vernal pool if possible.
Commissioner Simpson?
I appreciate the city of Hartford coming and giving us this presentation. Be great to see this park functioning the way it was at one time. I don't really have too many questions. I'll wait till the end of the presentation. It was reviewing all these wetlands. I guess if we don't like to see disturbance of wetlands, but there's number 3 is the one you mentioned right by that building is the one that was least functioning. So I think with further presentation and probably a site visit, we would better understand what the impact it would have in the area of what you're talking about disturbing. So at this point, I'll wait till further information. Thank you.
Commissioner Tulin?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about wetland 3 and trying to be clear on exactly what that is. And I caught the comment about the, that being a kind of a critical area, but I'll wait to listen to the rest of the presentation before I think of anything else. Thank you.
right, Ethan, back to you.
Awesome. I believe I'm passing it off to, is it Jesse or Rob?
Yep, I'll take it again.
Perfect.
Bruce, you can kind of flip through these. These are again just kind of recent overview pictures from earlier this year. Just to kind of again give some ideas of what's happening. So kind of zooming back out again, with this being such a large project and project area, we're essentially going to kind of look at this in two pieces. One is going to be the northwestern corner where the historical park development has always been. And then we'll look at also kind of the southwestern half of the site, which is designated with the letter C. That's intended to be a multi-use trail to connect the main park development area down to the Connecticut Deep Controlled Boat Launch that is split between New Britain and Farmington on the southern end of the pond. That trail is approximately just over 1 mile in length. And some of the goals of the city of Hartford and its future park management partner, Riverfront Recapture, is to host kind of 5K events and those type of fundraising events, working with Hartford Healthcare and Aetna and some of those other providers in hosting these events at this park. Whether or not it stays within the park or kind of spills out into some of the side streets, depending on how big the event is kind of to be determined. But we thought it would be important to provide a connection down to that southern part of the park. Also, gathering that neighborhood of New Britain, and people can easily access in a safe way from Alexander Road and get up to kind of the main part of the park where the development is proposed. Also, in conjunction with that trail network, there will be another small trail to kind of the east, in up by the park entrance piece, and that's really to kind of follow along a perennial used kind of trail that a lot of the residential adjoining properties use to access the park. Riverfront Recapture agrees that is another important connection where it will rejoin Battersea Park Road and again help kind of capture the residential neighborhoods in that area of town and get them safely in and out of the park, as well as just additional access to the water's edge for environmental education and wildlife viewing in the lake. So next slide. So this is an overlay of the wetlands highlighted in green, all the 150-foot upland review areas in the purple color. We also have, there is a FEMA Zone A outlined in the magenta line and the kind of the reddish colors that are most adjacent to the pond. And then our two trails highlighted in the yellow and cyan colors. And again, you can kind of see the blue cyan does not cross or go through any wetlands. There's a small little drainage ditch there that kind of comes off of Batterson Road. And then we're in the upland review area. And then the yellow highlighted trail, we're substantially avoiding all the wetlands with the exception of a small piece down by the boat launch area as it connects with that. We think there might be some opportunities there to avoid that. There's kind of a small strip in between them. But right now we're proposing that to be an elevated boardwalk section to minimize our impact as we go through that area. Next slide. And as Ethan mentioned, there's three kind of stream crossings along that route going to the south, and their corresponding pictures. Our approach is similar to what we typically do for electrical high tension right of ways. And if you go to the next slide, Bruce, it consists of a prefabricated bridge section with its abutments well outside of the wetland limits that will span those distances. And those seem to work quite well in terms of constructability, minimal disturbance, and just ease of construction, in kind of these remote access areas. If you look to the right, Bruce, there's a typical cross section of the trail where it's on grade. It's intended to be a paved multi-use trail, 8 foot wide with 1 foot gravel, dirt soil shoulders on either side. In a typical kind of aggregate pavement cross section below that. The intent is that Riverfront, again, will utilize that as kind of their network of trails for events, but also just ease of maintenance, having it be a paved surface versus gravel. They feel that's easier for them to maintain long term. And then also the 8 foot wide is based on just their desire to have a small maintenance vehicle access that to remove down trees. Even in the case of an emergency in more of these remote locations, is getting some sort of small emergency vehicle out there for those type of access points. And then where we have that small portion of the boardwalk section by the boat ramp, again, that will kind of meet the same width of 8 foot wide, again, to kind of just traverse that small section of wetlands. Another important aspect of this trail, again, is kind of just getting people out in nature, environmental education, and those type of activities. Next slide, Bruce. So now we're going to kind of zoom into approximately about 20 acres in total, but probably about really a 10 to 12 acre area of development. This has been the historical location of the park development with the old buildings, the old beach access and beach area, and the site drive. The existing access to the park is right at that tight corner between 2 Mile Road and Batterson Park Road. We're proposing to close that off and turn that into emergency access only. It also functions as our utility right away. There's overhead utilities, there's underground utilities, water, sewer, etc. So we need to kind of maintain that right away for that. We're proposing a new access road off of Batterson Park Road to the north. One, again, this kind of gets the park patron traffic away from the residential uses, captures any traffic flow coming from the south, and captures it before it goes into kind of the residential area, and just functions better, for the city's needs moving forward as an active passive park. That site drive comes in and basically reconnects with the existing road at the existing culvert that traverses the small stream that comes from the north of the site and into Batterson Pond. And then we have a new parking area, approximately 90 parking spaces. There's spaces for buses and vehicles with small trailers to park. The parking counts are really based off of Riverfront Recapture's experience with their parks along the Connecticut River and kind of what they've seen. In light of COVID, they've had much bigger participation in their parks over the years, and they feel that number is is probably adequate for 365 days a year use. Part of the park development is new park support building, which will have restrooms and a small kind of empty open concession space. There will be no food prep. It's just a space that vendors can come in and sell food off of hot plates. And then so that's kind of centrally located at A. We have kind of a support plaza around that for functions and events, seating tables, possibly some food trucks. That's in C. We got a small playground of natural materials, so it'd be a wood playground with natural surfacing at D. And then E is kind of our big event lawn. And just as perspective, this is generally sitting on top of kind of the raised mound created by the historical leach field and septic system that supported the old bathrooms. These new bathroom facilities will be serviced by public water and sewer that will be pumped up to Batterson Park Road. So the old septic system and leach field will be abandoned. So that E will be kind of that event lawn. They can pitch tents out there and just be a flexible space for them. And then kind of moving out from this kind of core area in H, we have obviously a new maintenance garage with this semi-remote location still being under the ownership of the city of Hartford and managed by Riverfront Recapture. They're both based out of Hartford, so they need a place for maintenance staff, maintenance equipment to be on site year round. Again, the intent of this park is a 365-day park. There will be some snow clearing of the parking lots and so forth. So they'll have, a plow truck and sander in that garage as well. And then kind of moving to the south, there's a existing kind of paved roadway. We're going to maintain that roadway through what was historically kind of the picnic grove amongst the mature tree canopy. We're going to enhance that area with some new picnic tables, a couple pavilions for some shaded covered spaces. There'll be some permanent grilling stations and hot coal dispensers for that. And those are highlighted in the letter G. N is proposed to be kind of a raised platform for bird watching and wildlife observations. It's going to overlook kind of the wet meadow wetland and out into the pond. So it gives you kind of this nice elevated perspective of the entire area to be able to do that. And then kind of circling back around, J is that kind of connection to the trail that we talked about previously that heads to the south in the boat launch area. And then L is our proposed boardwalk. This follows the historical location of the paved walkway that Ethan was mentioning floods quite consistently. So we propose to remove the asphalt paving and again follow that alignment with a slightly elevated boardwalk, restoring hydraulic connectivity to the wetlands, up gradient and down gradient of that, and then also providing just an immersive experience within the wetland meadow for observations and education and all those benefits. M is a proposed fishing pier. This is meant to be a floating dock system and will be removed seasonally. But again, based on just kind of historical uses and whatnot, that fishing is fairly popular here. Connecticut Deep maintains it as a trophy carp fishing lake. So we wanted to give them a point of access for fishing Currently, a lot of fishing is done from the bank and has eroded areas. So we want to give them a good accessible point of access for that. And then kind of just traversing back along the boardwalk to kind of the main core area, just kind of to the lower side of that where Bruce has his cursor is the historical beach location. And if anybody's read the Deep report that came out earlier this year, basically Deep has deemed the pond a non-swimmable lake or pond. So as part of this project, the the beach area will become just a naturalized area. Native vegetation that's growing there today is going to continue to grow. There'll be some signs posted, no swimming in the lake, as well as one of the key benefits of having Riverfront Recapture as a partner in this is that they will have full-time rangers on site again to monitor and manage that so that people abide by that restriction of no swimming. Again, kind of this historical use here was swimming back in the day, and people may seem that it's kind of open to that, but the intent is that that will not be an option here. And then kind of just swinging back around to the letter K, Riverfront does have a desire to provide non-motorized water access with canoes and kayaks. So again, they're proposing a floating dock system with accessibility improvements to, for handicapped people or mobility impaired to gain access to their kayaks or canoes and launch from that point out into the pond. You can move to the next slide. I think, yeah. So this kind of helps identify the wetlands and overlaid with the 150-foot upland review, and then the FEMA floodplain zone A in the red, and that kind of overlays our site plan that we were just looking at and how our improvements relate to those locations. As you can see, majority of the work is in the upland review, with the exception of that wetland 3 small pocket, which unfortunately sits right in the middle of everything. So that is one of those areas. It's about 600 square feet that we'll be looking to mitigate on site. Next slide. Actually, go back one slide. I'm sorry, Bruce. Just to kind of reiterate on this one, work within the wetlands, 4,800 square feet, and that is due to that pocket wetland kind of center of the site, helical piles driven for boardwalk supports, not only in this location, but also on that trail connecting down to the boat ramp. And then just some minor work for these anchorages associated with these mobile floating docks along the lake area. And we were pretty conservative about that estimate when we did our takeoff, assuming a certain amount of disturbance associated with that, which will hopefully, contractor will be less than that, but we wanted to be conservative in our estimate with that approach. And then our area within the upland review is 7.55 acres. Next slide, Bruce. And with that, I'll turn over to Rob Newton, our engineer, talk about the stormwater management of the site.
Well, thank you, Jesse. So really in this, our concept for stormwater management on this property is promoting a lot of overland flow and really focusing on our water quality. So it's really, we're looking at creating 5 above ground bioretention basins that will help remove any sediments, any contaminants that may enter the stormwater flow. Really, I think this will provide the water quality that we need and desire entering into Batterson Park, Batterson Pond. So really, our focus is to promote water quality. The soils here are basically the topography of the land. Really, it lends itself to that overland flow and try to capture that water and that stormwater quality volume in each one of these basins. We are exceeding the water quality manual's recommendations for stormwater quality volume on the site by use of these basins. Any of the stormwater that is generated from the paved areas will enter a sediment forebay prior to entering into the water quality, the bioretention basins. So we'll try to capture any of the initial sediments into those sediment forebays, and then the water will then move into the bioretention basins. Each basin is designed to help pass safely any excess stormwater in a major storm event, pass that water safely, and then really prevent erosion from those major storm events. So really our focus here is the water quality volume and maintaining that cleansing of the water prior to entering into the pond. As during the construction periods, we have developed a complete sediment and erosion control system with hay bales and straw bales and some logs to help control any of the sediments. And with riverfront recapture on site and maintaining the site, they can maintain these basins so they don't become overgrown with vegetation. They can clean these basins and prevent any accumulation of sediment. So having them on board for the year-round maintenance of the property will help maintain that these basins are functional throughout the period of the park. Jesse did mention some of the park is located within the flood zone. The earthwork, as we have laid out this project, will actually increase the volume of that flood zone. So with our filling of, we will not be decreasing any of the volume of the floods within the flood zone. So that's a brief overview of the stormwater management that we are proposing for the park. Jesse?
Yep. Yeah, next slide, Bruce. And to kind of look at closing this out, planting plans, all disturbed areas will be stabilized with either lawn, plants, or conservation seeding. Conservation seeding is highlighted in kind of the darker green. That's around all the periphery areas. And then in the lighter green is areas that are intended to be maintained lawn, so weekly mowings. Conservation seeded areas would be seasonal. And then there's some existing meadows and things that are upland that will be also seasonally maintained as well. As part of the planting plan, we have 102 new trees proposed. Of that, there's 12 different species of native or adapted species as part of that plan. And again, the aesthetic and the approach to the planting design is really to keep with the pastoral setting that's out there today, meadows, flowing grasses blowing in the wind. And then, of course, we have trees for shading of pavement and the plazas around the kind of the core areas, shading for people to sit and relax and enjoy the outdoors and enjoy the view of the pond. And then the plantings that will help support, as Rob was saying, the bioretention basins in their functions as well. Next slide, Bruce. So kind of focusing a little bit more on the wetland mitigation restoration areas. We talked about it before, highlighted in the cyan are the paved areas, which totals approximately 17,850 square feet of impervious surface within wetland one. This is the larger area. And then we're proposing as part of the mitigation restoration, 12,445 square feet. I did not, to be conservative, I did not include the area directly under the boardwalk, because that will be shaded. Obviously, there'll be hydraulic connectivity and function there, but the vegetation will be kind of sparse because of the shade from the boardwalk. The plant list proposed for these restoration areas will be developed based on observed native plant communities on site. So those will work in harmony with what's out there today. And then it's kind of shown in the cross section here. And as Ethan had mentioned, we're going to remove the asphalt paving, the impervious surface. We're going to remove the gravel base and bring that elevation back down to a level that, again, provides and expands the function of the wetland. And then there'll be a new cross section of wetland soils and plant material. That work will be directly supervised by someone like Ethan or another wetland soil scientist that we have on staff. I believe that's it. I really appreciate the commission sticking with us through this long presentation. It's a large site. There's a lot of complex natural resources out here. We're really excited to be at this point with this project, to be in front of you tonight. Like I said, BSC Group's been involved since early last year. So we're really excited to get this project moving and get it back open to the public in middle of 2025.
Great. Thank you all for that presentation. You obviously presented quite a bit of material. I do have a couple of procedural questions for Bruce. Because we're close to New Britain just has to be notified of the application, correct? Or do they also have a review and approval?
No, there's just a notification.
Notification, because there's no actual impact in New Britain. And is there any jurisdiction with the Army Corps or Deep, or we're just doing our review and action independently, and any other approvals would occur concurrently, but it doesn't affect what we do, correct?
At this time, no, because I'm going by with their the estimates that they had put together. We haven't had a lot of time to review these in full, but I think they are under 5,000 square foot of disturbance, and there are no Army Corps wetlands being impacted.
Okay, great. I'll start with some of the questions, and I'm not sure who on the presentation team will handle this. The rationale for the new access location, because it looks like there's a fair amount of grading and there's a lot of work definitely within the regulated area. And is there any direct wetland impact for the new access road?
No, there is no direct wetland impact. We're outside of the wetland itself. We're capturing sheet flow from that paved surface along that western edge with a vegetated swale, and that comes down to one of those bioretention areas right at the bend where it will discharge to the wetland, but there is no direct wetland impact in that area.
And why is the new access point preferred over improving the existing access?
So there's a couple things. One is just kind of the messy nature of that corner, that intersection. The geometry isn't quite right there, as well as the width of our driveway on the site is constrained by utility poles, and then where that tree line is, there's large mature oak trees that we want to preserve, and then there's some topography changes there, but looking back at those pictures that I showed early on, it's not a full 24-foot wide. So we wouldn't be able to get, a clear two-way traffic through there. And then kind of talking about this early on with Chief of Police and the town engineer, we were looking at a way to kind of, again, get that traffic and that entrance out of that corner.
Thank you. And then I'll move on to the other commissioner because there's probably a lot of questions. I think my perspective for the rest of the commission would be definitely to do a site walk, and I'm thinking this would probably have to be a public hearing, given that there's 4,000 plus square feet of direct fill area and acres of work within a regulated area. But I'll move on and hear from the other commissioners. Commissioner Berlandy?
Yeah, I would agree that it's being a significant activity, and then definitely site walk and a public hearing on this application. I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox?
Yeah, I agree, both on the significance, the public hearing, and definitely a site walk as well. I was wondering, additional follow-up about the access road. I was looking at this presentation this afternoon. If you go to page 32, it shows an access road that's a little bit further away from the wetlands. I was wondering if that is something that's still being considered.
Yeah, so we had a meeting with town staff last week, and this was something that Bruce brought up. And in response to that, we did look at that option. There is an option to kind of pull that away from, further away from, and actually maintain the existing tree line that runs along the bottom of the slope there. So again, that is a feasible option that we could consider.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Kelsey?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Eisner on significance and site walk and public hearing, etc. Just a couple of quick things now, and I'm sure I'll have more as we go through the process. But on the trail, two questions: are the raised boardwalks and the bridges, are they going to have railings on them? Is question number one. And number two, my understanding is that trail is primarily asphalt. And I know from the rails to trails, we have continual problems where tree roots grow up, buckle the pavement, and eventually create a safety issue, and they have to be dug up and redone. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, any way to mitigate that, or what your plans are for maintaining and keeping the trail safe over time.
Yeah, so the boardwalk itself through the wet meadow is intended to be very low, so there'd be a curb but no railings. We wouldn't be exceeding the 30-inch difference in height. And again, that's just to minimize its visual impact, not only within the park, but also being good neighbors with the housing across the pond, and not having these big rails obstructing views. Where things cross those stream channels, obviously there's going to be some sort of guard or fence there to prevent people from falling off the edge in those cases. Yeah, that's a good reference image right there of the boardwalk through the wet meadow.
Okay, thank you. And on the tree roots?
The tree root, that's a tough one. Mother Nature's gonna do what she does, and we can do our best to maintain that. It's kind of a compromise of tree health and mortality, and then just the maintenance. Again, here, we will have the benefit of, riverfront recapture, maintaining this park in perpetuity. Those things will be just, I think, part of their operations and maintenance plan, which, those members aren't here to speak about that tonight, but, hopefully as we go through this process, if we need to, they can attend.
Okay. Yeah, and down the road, I'd like to hear more about, are you cutting any trees? Clearing any canopies, things like that, because all that maintenance work has occurred on the rails and trails, and if you go through it, you'll see where trees, along the trail have been cut down to try to prevent the roots from coming back up. So, if there's any plans around that, I'd like to hear about them. And that's all I had tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Simons?
Yes, I actually have been following this a little closely. I know that there's like a $10 million grant, and there's even a proposal for the Passport to Parks fee to increase to make sure that everything sustains for this. But I guess my question, because this is an area that has been neglected for 10 years, is there any kind of master plan for resilience in case the proposed 50-cent increase doesn't go through? Then the $10 million gets exhausted. Is there really like a kind of plan to make sure that what you are installing is strong enough to withhold not being maintained for a certain amount of time, just in case there's a financial difficulty? I feel like I'm being a Debbie Downer here, but I feel like I need to at least voice that, especially because this has been 10 years in the making.
Through you, Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Paul Drumming, City of Hartford. So great question. So we're taking measures. A portion of this funding from the state, the $10 million is going to be put aside in a lockbox for future capital improvements years down the road when things are going to need improvements. So there's that, and then the 365 oversight and maintenance of the facility will lend itself to extended life on all the elements within the park. So I think there's that as well.
Yeah, I think one good example of that long-term durability is the boardwalk itself. We're looking at a precast concrete product versus wood. Obviously, concrete is much more durable than wood. It doesn't warp, it doesn't check, doesn't catch on fire if for some reason that happened. So those are some of the things we're going to look at, especially as we get closer down the road here and really start crunching numbers and see what fits within the budget. And then I would also put out there that some of this could be phased depending on how the numbers come in.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions. I do think a site walk is definitely needed because of this significant activity, so I would be more than happy to visit the site at a later date whenever we set that up.
Great. Commissioner Simpson?
I don't have any questions at this time, but thank you for the presentation.
Commissioner Tulin?
He stepped out.
Okay.
He had to excuse himself.
Sure. Okay. Then I'll have sort of the final word from the commission. I think as the application moves forward, I do think additional enhancement in the way of mitigation for the vernal pool would be good. I know you said it's sort of an area that's not really going to be actively developed, but I think it's probably a unique resource on the property. So when you're looking at it, and it's really a balancing act. So, that you're going to revitalize the whole area, and it's that balance of some impacts offset by the increased enjoyment and recreation and education values. So I think, giving consideration to what can be done to protect and enhance the vernal pool long term would be a nice addition to the overall plan. So Bruce, I think at this point, we'll accept the application, and then you'll work on scheduling a site walk. Obviously, we're gonna need a fair amount of time. It's a big site, lot to cover. So administratively, Bruce, that's correct for our next steps?
Yeah, I'd like to accept the application, and if you don't mind, due to the complexity of that site walk, I'd like to have like a 5-minute discussion with everybody and the applicant, so we can kind of choose a date here easier that everyone kind of feels is an acceptable date.
Okay, so let's do the easier thing, and is there a motion to accept the application?
So moved.
I think I heard a move by Commissioner Simmons and a second by Commissioner Fox.
I didn't
Is
say
that correct?
anything, but
Oh,
I'll second it if I need to.
well, I'll go to Sandy. Sandy, did you get the motion in the second?
Yep,
You got it?
Simon's Fox, yep.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain? Okay, motion carries. So, excuse me, Bruce, you want to work on scheduling?
I think we want to, let's see, I mean, I think just so the applicant is here and they're aware, site walk, I think we're probably talking some of the key areas, so at least looking at this driveway entrance here, up along the wetlands, proceeding down through here, and from there, whether the commission feels that they want to do the walk. If I can find a better one here.
To the vernal pool.
Yeah, well, yeah, out this right here. Doing this whole walk out to the far end, out to the boat ramp. So is that what we're kind of looking at? Looking at maybe a couple of these stream crossings as well to get a gauge of an understanding. And then the wetland is over here, are the potential vernal pools here, which ties us back into the boat ramp. So I'm assuming we'd probably want to walk a portion of this as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
is it, Bruce, is it readily walkable? I'm assuming that the brush is not overly,
That-
difficult, but
that I can't answer because I have not walked this deep.
It
Yeah.
would probably be worth coming in from the boat ramp for the wetlands and then coming in from the park for the development area. That sort of tighter area is fairly thick and pretty steep in parts. The flat parts are fairly brushy and the steep parts are steep. So it might be worth coming in from the other side.
Okay. Also, we probably would want to see any of the wetland flagging that's there, so the commission could understand where the wetlands are. And again, I think we know the general locations of these, but I think understanding this location with the driveway, as well as maybe some of the flagging out here for this wetland and this vernal pool, understanding where that is, so the commission can understand where the trail is in location to any of these improvements, as well as the driveway into any of these improvements. So do you guys need any timing to walk out there and make sure that's done?
The flags to the south where that vernal pool is, those were recently done. So those should all still be out there. The flags to the north here along this driveway, that's all wooded. Those should still be there. The ones in the meadow, I'm not sure. Those were, little wire flags with pink ribbon. And I don't know how extensive the mowing was that was just done a few weeks ago, if they went crazy and mowed all that,
So,
or
Jesse,
what.
if I may, could BSC get somebody out there before the end of business on Friday to make sure all the flags are in place if the commission was available on a beautiful weekend like this weekend?
I think this week it may be a little soon, I think for some other people as well. So I got a kind of few dates in here. Maybe thinking as early as the 20th or the weekend after. So that would probably be looking at, get my calendar here. The 19th is a no, so maybe the 20th or the 26th or the 27th. How are those dates for everybody?
I could do the
Bruce, this is
20th or
Robert.
the 27th.
One at a time.
Yeah, same for me. I can do the 20th or 27th. I cannot do the 26th.
All right, 20th or 27th is looking, so either one of those dates. Anybody else have any bad times in there? And again, BSC or BCI, if you guys have any of these, if any of these are bad dates, just give us a holler if you can.
They'll be available. They'll be available.
Have some of you guys as well as Ethan there as well.
We'll make ourselves available.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
Paul,
can't
Paul
do-
said you were gonna be available.
Yes, they'll be
Yes.
available.
I can't do the
This is
20th,
Commissioner-
but I can do the 26th, 27th.
All right, so 27th seems to be an acceptable date for everybody.
Great.
All right, so we'll
Yeah,
throw that out.
The 27th is Commissioner Simpson. I would not be available. I believe I am scheduled for helping out for early voting.
Okay. Let's see what
But-
else.
You know, I gotta see my time. Maybe it's not the whole day. Maybe it is.
Okay.
I can't remember. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
do
check
you want
that
to
right
get,
now.
do you want to get back to me? Because it's depending on what time we can.
Yeah, I will.
You know, we can make these things early enough, you know, so maybe you can get there, at least see a good part of it, you know?
Well, right now I'm looking at it. It says 10 to 6. I'm doing early voting. I have to be there half an hour earlier, so 9:30.
All right.
So, and then you clean up. So I would say that Sunday, the 27th, I will not be able to attend.
The 26th doesn't seem to work for anybody either. That was a
Yeah,
bad
the
day.
26th would be better for me. That would be fine, but you know, do what you have to do to
What we
get the
could do is this too,
most of the
if you don't
commission.
mind, I mean, what we could do is we could still go for the 27th. If we need to, you and I can go down there, we can meet separately, you know? After work or when, you know, and just go down there, and I can give you the summary of what we saw. All right,
Okay.
okay? All right, so let's shoot for the 27th at this time. All right,
Bruce, we could also have the team out there to meet the commissioner on a separate
okay,
day
yeah,
as well.
yeah, I'll let you know, okay?
Okay.
And then you know what I could do? If that's the case, we'll offer 2 days and then either one, and the commissioners can pick which day suits them best, okay?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. I think that's it for me then. So as long as it's clear that the wetlands are located, so maybe having somebody out there before that just to walk it, make sure the flags are clearly still there and we're not trying to search for them that day and maybe like in some of these key areas, maybe just putting some flags for some potential clearing lines or clearing limits, you know, at this point, just to kind of so that the commission gets an understanding of where the wetlands are compared to where the area of disturbance is going to start. All right.
Bruce, may I ask
Yeah.
a question?
Yeah.
So process, schedule. So we have the walkthrough, just
Mhm.
for my report to leadership. After that, it sounds like there's gonna be a public meeting. Is that a few weeks after the walkthrough? I guess I'm asking how it would work.
Well, technically, they have not determined significance at this point.
Okay.
Commission, the commission can determine that right now if they want, and we could set the public hearing, or they could wait for the site walk on the 27th. And at that point, determine, you know, then we wouldn't be able to determine, that would take us to the meeting on the 6th to determine significance. So then you'd probably be looking at a public hearing in December. I think either way, either way, you'd be looking at a public hearing in December, right? So 1 to the 11th, right? Since next meeting.
December 4th.
Fourth. Do we
So-
meet the 20th?
No.
No, just
No.
once in November.
Does that give us enough time, Sandy, you think? If we decide on the 6th to schedule 1, 2, 3, that gives us 4 weeks.
Oh, that's funny from
Yeah.
November to December. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so we could, so let's plan on the public hearing being on December 4th.
And that's it for December. right?
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
that's it, and then that's it for December.
Yeah.
Are you still there, Paul?
I'm still here. Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay.
So that's a definite, the public hearing, because we've deemed it significant.
Well, they have not deemed that yet. The commission is discussing it. They are definitely leaning towards that.
Okay,
So
very good.
I think the
Yeah,
sidewalk.
and Paul, I think, you know, the difference is you could, as the applicant, you could request a hearing as a discretionary hearing. I think the commission really needs to do our site work first, before we determine on significance, and then the attorneys can advise us, because there is a difference on the appeal rights, whether it was a mandatory hearing because of significance or a discretionary hearing. But I think if if you're saying you'd want to schedule a hearing, that will definitely get you on the docket sooner. But
Okay,
decision on significance will be based in the field.
Understood. Thank you, Chairman. All right, that answers my question. Appreciate you.
Great. Thanks to the presentation team. You did a great job, and we'll see you out in the field on the 27th, I think we said, right?
We'll do 9 o'clock seem to work for everybody? Or you
9
want to go
o'clock's
earlier?
perfect.
I can't do earlier, so 9 is good.
9 a.m. then? Seems to work for
Yep.
everybody?
Yep.
All right, I'll send out a confirmation and a parking chart and things like that. Okay?
Thank you, everyone.
All right,
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so Bruce is bringing us to item 3 under new business, the cease and desist for 1509 Farmington Ave.
Still working on it, still working with them. So he's kind
And
of
are the
he-
fines continuing to be accrued?
at this point, yes, they are. You know, we haven't sent an updated letter. We need to process this on our end and get a decision in front of our hearing officer next. So
This is across the street.
yeah, across the street. So he's vanished. I go out there periodically. There's nobody out there. There's no additional work at this point. So he keeps getting invited for each one of these meetings just so he can talk if he has anything to discuss, but he doesn't attend. So
Right. And what happens, what needs to happen to get it before the hearing officer?
I need to send out, next thing is for me to send out a letter to him. I have to send out a letter updating all the fines and requesting it be paid. If not, a hearing will be filed at that point.
Okay, thanks for the update.
Okay.
So now moving on to election of officers, which we could either do tonight, or we could entertain a discussion and put it off to another meeting. It's my understanding from Bruce that he talked with Ned, and Ned said that he would be willing to stay on as the chairman if nominated. I would be willing to stay on as vice chair if nominated, but for the folks that are newer to the commission, I do have a conflict on many third Wednesdays of the month. Tonight was an anomaly. So with that understanding, if there is a better option for vice chair, for more predictability, I would also yield my position if that was the desire of the commission. And Commissioner Fox, I'll put you on the spot. Where do you stand on if you were to be nominated again? Are you willing to stay on as secretary?
Certainly would.
So that's the opening dialogue, and I think we're all in. If anyone is not comfortable, moving with the election of officers because Ned is not here tonight, then we can certainly table it to our next meeting. But I sort of open it up to the rest of the commission for discussion or potential nominations.
So I'm comfortable moving forward, and I'll even make a nomination that we nominate a slate and elect a slate of Ned as president or chair, Robert Eisner as vice chair, and Dave Fox as secretary.
This is Commissioner Simpson. I agree with that. I second it. There needs to be a second. And this just proves you shouldn't skip meetings, otherwise bad things happen.
I think that's an excellent thing to point out.
I'm glad
Is everyone comfortable? I guess we have a motion in seconds, so we have to call it. Before we call the motion, is everyone comfortable, or is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will recognize the nomination in the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? I will abstain.
Yes, I should probably abstain too. Stay.
Yeah. Be
Okay,
careful.
sounds-
Be careful.
Everybody abstaining.
Now, everyone can abstain, then we won't have a legal vote. So
Oh, okay, then, so we can vote for ourselves, correct?
yeah,
You can.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
then I'll be on the yes vote.
okay.
Okay, well, I thank the commission for the continued support, and look forward to serving the group for another year.
And thanks to all three of you for your continued service.
And special thanks for Ned because he has stepped up to commission out, and I really appreciate Ned carrying forward as our chair. Okay, planners report. Bruce, you want to
I
tell
do
us what
have
we need
one
to know?
item. Yeah, no, I do have one item that popped up yesterday. I received a call from New Horizons. All right. If anyone's familiar, they did an expansion and then some basin work. So they did some housing up along in this area here, did some site improvements, and as well did some improvements within the basin. All right. There's been some concerns with some of the quality and the condition of the trees within the basin. Okay, so they had me out there yesterday. They had flagged about 10 or 12 trees that need to be removed. All right. I'll give you a sample of what some of the trees look like. I mean, here's one of them. I think that's a deer. I'm not a hunter, but I'm thinking that's a deer because I've been seeing a lot of that lately in the woods. But here's another one. Here's one. They're all dead, no foliage up there. A lot of the bark has been peeling off. It range anywhere from 10 to let's say 30 inches in diameter. All right. Some of them are leaning and some are in need of imminent removal. So I discussed with them that I would bring it up in front of the commission. I just so happened to be having a meeting and thought maybe we can do this just under a planner's report, unless the commission felt an application was more something that they'd like to see. So I'll leave this
Yeah,
to
Bruce. Bruce. My thought is if they're just taking down the trees and they're not going to pull the stumps, then I'd rather have it as an office, administrative. It's it's a safety factor. If they're going to pull the stumps, then I'd want to see an application.
No, all the trees are, all the stumps are staying. They're going to cut them as close to the ground as they can, and then just leave the stumps.
Yeah, that has minimal disturbance, and it's a hazard leaving the trees the way they are.
Exactly. Okay.
Is that wetlands in there?
It's considered a wetland. Yes,
Okay.
it is considered a wetland, but it's a stormwater detention basin wetland.
Okay.
So, all right.
Bruce, are all the trees dead?
Not all, some. Again, they are a non-profit, so that's part of the problem. They don't have the money to go through and do all of them, so they had an arborist go in there, and they're more or less just they just tagged the worst trees at this point. So it'll be something that they may do next year. They may do one or two more if two more die. So it's something that they'll do on an as a need basis only. So, and I know there has been some discussion between New Horizons and the residents in the back who do have concerns with some of the trees that are leaning towards their houses and their property. So that's kind of what's instigating this.
Yes, I agree with Rob that we could do this as a, course of business through the planner's office. I just like to reiterate with them that they have to keep asking, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they
Perfectly,
can't do
yep.
10 this year with
Yep.
permission and then
No,
start doing
yeah,
more.
they're pretty good. I have a good rapport with the groundsman, and that's why he called me and say, hey, I gotta talk to you about this. So I will definitely though let him know that he needs to keep coming back. All right.
Great, thank you, Bruce.
All right.
So moving on to the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the September 18th, 2024 minutes?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a
Okay,
second?
second, Mark. Second, Mark.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Yeah, I'll abstain. I don't think I was at that meeting.
Yeah. You want.
Okay, motion carries. We will close the wetland meeting at 8:44 and open the Conservation Commission meeting at 8:44. And Bruce, I don't have my agenda for the Conservation Commission handy, so can you guide us through there? Perfect.
Everything, we have no new business. Planners report, the only thing I do have is, of course, right after I sent out the agenda review last week, I received a Cacuic notification. So this was the same thing they did last year. All right, so this is open to all the members. If you want, as I said, the town will pay for these. But I did send that out. It does give you some of the information and the people that are gonna be there. All right, it's an interesting thing. They'll go over, where is it in here? They've got all kinds of workshops. If you list through there, they have these workshops on like invasive species, pollinators, or whatever they're gonna be doing this year. So if you go through that, you'll see. And as I said, the town will pay the cost. And I want to say that if you register by October 19th, which is a few days, then you get the early bird special, and there's no refunds after November 9th. So if anyone does want to go, the date just escaped me again.
November 16th.
November 16th, I said that, probably forgot already. So, yeah, so November 16th. If anyone is interested, please let me know as soon as possible. And it is in Bristol. They're having it at the Bristol Event Center over down by ESPN. So if anyone is interested, please get a hold of me and we will get you all registered. All right?
Great, thanks, Bruce. All right, is there a motion, motion to approve? Well, we have to do election of officer. No, we did election for,
Nope,
that's
we're good.
only on the other agenda.
Yep.
So just the minutes, right?
Correct.
Exactly.
Okay, motion to approve the September 18th, 2024 minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved, Rich.
Thank you. Second,
Second, Mark.
all
Second,
those in
Mark.
favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining?
Yeah, I'll abstain again.
All right. Motion carries and we can adjourn at 8:46.